day, breathful day. So we're tapping in with electro sound therapy. Because we live in an electromagnetic universe. How is everyone? What up? What up? What's going on? Much love, much love. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, let them fly as well. So I want to share with you, if you didn't see the video, here's a quick synopsis. And I want to share what's going on here. And another way of looking at the scalar plasma and also how to utilize it. So when electromagnetic energy is hitting something like sacred geometry, especially when it's metal, imagine the air molecules sending an echo of that sacred geometry also to your magnetic field. It's also going to be interacting. Just like we've seen what happens when you're wearing the amethyst lenses, the crystal amethyst lenses with aura photos. So that same thing is happening to your electromagnetic body as well. I might have to take before and afters. That'll be really cool. And this is the Ethiopian cross, which is, I saw it, I'm like, oh man, this is sacred geometry right here. And it's ancient as well, right? So they back then they just made everything in unison with natural law. So Ethiopian crosses, crop circles, and somatics, since we live in a field of vibrational energy, since everything is energy, the field of energy we live is geometric in structure. We find the geometric waves and patterns, since in cymatic experiments, crystallized everywhere in nature. Everywhere. Crystallized everywhere. Keyword crystallize. Keyword even crystalline structure. In a way, it's also what? Fractal therapy. In terms of looking at specific fractals, that's what you're also getting in nature when you're doing your nature walks, etc. You are getting a form of fractal therapy. That. So the patterns found in cymatic experiments are stunning and beautiful in its order and complexity. If the universe is vibrating field of energy, it is the sound that organizes the structure of nature and the structure of the cosmos. In Genesis, God, with his quote-unquote spoken word, created the universe with cymatics. It gives a whole new meaning to God's spoken word. But what came before the word? Well, let me turn off the comments so you guys can see the whole thing. But what came before the word? The breath. The structure of air molecules before even the word comes out, because you need to breathe to get a word out, regardless, right? No matter what mantra you give or whatever, you need a breath to give that mantra. And within all the religious texts, and even in ancient Sumeria, the gods being talked about in Egypt, in the Bible, in the Quran, some actually say it might be the Sumerian gods. The god you think is actually the Sumerian gods, and we're gonna dive into that maybe on here. We'll see. Maybe I can bring it up actually. Okay, let's see. Did I go lower? All right. Okay. It also gives a greater respect to Vedic science and sacred geometry. Many of the sacred geometry found in Vedic, as well as the Star of David, are seen in cymatic experiments in the universe, and the universe is sound. the universe is sound. It is vibrating energy. Vibrating energy creates fractal geometric patterns. Thus, we live in a fractal universe made up of fractal patterns. It is geometry that forms the structure of the universe. In many cultures and traditions, it is known as sacred geometry. So, something to note, what you're hearing, you're not just hearing the scalar plasma at a subtle level. You are hearing the frequency of the Ethiopian cross connecting with the scalar plasma as well.
How does that feel?
So you're not just hearing the Ethiopian cross. You're also hearing. You're not just hearing the scalar plasma, but you're also hearing the Ethiopian cross, and you're also hearing what? Sacred geometry. That is the subtleties of how you can also use scalar plasma as well within cymatics. If I were to do a cymatic of the Ethiopian cross with me blasting my heart and the sound of the Ethiopian cross, you'd see two different cymatics. And I'm actually working on that to get this device that actually shows you different geometries of sound, and it moves and it fluctuates. It's really cool. Yeah, but guys, any questions you have, this is the vibrational world that we live in, and the electrical part is the starting foundation of it. What came before? The chicken or the egg? Which one came before, the chicken or the egg? And some of my friends go, it depends who you ask. Well, before the chicken or the egg, down to the cellular level, it was the electrical plasma formation. So when you're using the scalar plasma as well, I want you to note that you're not just looking. You're also getting fractal therapy through the scalar plasma. And if you notice the way the scalar plasma is coming out, it's actually going in a clockwise motion as well, which is what we also dive into with scalar movement and breath. Let me show you. Where is it? Tell me I downloaded. Okay, good. So if you notice, it's moving circular. It's not just coming out like that. It's moving in a motion. It's moving in a spiral, which all atoms are stemming from in terms of implosion. And we utilize implosion with scalar movement and breath. If you really want to step up your Qigong, Tai Chi, whatever you do in terms of that nature, tap into scalar movement and breath. It will change your outlook of all of those stuff, and you'll start to realize how watered down most of these practices are. In my opinion, all the way from yoga, Tai Chi, you're mainly supposed to be doing one pose for an hour and breathing through that one pose for an hour, mainly with the nose, going back and forth. Because it stems from all the way when yoga started. And the first yoga is breath. They did all those yoga moves to outstretch the breath. And what they did was, they stayed in one yoga pose for as long as they can, breathing only with the nose. And then the next day, they'll go to another pose, or a couple hours after, they'll go into another pose, and they do it that way. I dare you to do that 30 days straight, and especially if you're a yoga teacher, try it out. Try it out. Back then, they didn't go back and forth. No, they spent a good hour just in one pose, just one pose alone. Because think about it like this, your body, and it also goes with earthing too. I'll give you a great tip with earthing. If you really want to get more benefits from earthing, stand in that one spot for an hour. Don't just walk around. Actually stand in that one spot, because your magnetic field and the Earth's magnetic field is going to start reading each other at a deeper level, especially when you're still, because when you're walking around, moving around, you have to take up new processes, etc., and start to, it resets over and over and over and over again. Well, we also go over that with scalar movement and breath, utilizing a tree as well. I do this when I stretch. Fire. Yeah, I've seen the Ghostbuster version. Alright guys, let's see. What else did I want to bring up? We also got the arc finally going. That arc is something else. And something to note, if you're coming to the May 28th event, we're going to be having a live brain scan of what's happening utilizing Scalar and also alchemizing with alchemy, breathwork, and Scalar, and also sound healing within the max 3 hours. Yeah, the before and afters are wild, but it goes to show you, because back then the plasmic atmosphere that we lived in was way more potent. Greetings, brother.
Peace, bro.
Peace. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just soaking up the game. Yeah, for the people just now hopping on, I wanted to know if you could go into again, because there might be people on my end that may not know the importance of the plasma gun and kind of the health benefits. Because I heard you going into the geometry, and things of that nature. But if you could briefly elaborate, because for me personally, I know just how powerful the technology that you're presenting is, but for people who may not be too familiar, who are just jumping on now, and even with the amethyst classes, bro, elaborate, if you could, just on the significance and the health benefits of both.
Yeah, so the scalar plasma, what we're doing is we're gaining more access to scalar. And think about it like this: the veins within our body, it looks like electricity. It looks like the arc coming out from the scalar plasma. So when you have the external communicating with the internal, it's going to strengthen the electrical input within the body as well, connecting to the outer layers of the scalar energy. So think about it like this: when you cut off the bark of a tree and you attach it to another bark, it's going to stitch itself up. So think of it that way, where the electrical output within the body is communicating with the electrical input of the external world, etc., and it's strengthening the electricity within the body, so those cells can charge up a lot faster and heal itself a lot faster. Because once upon a time, if you look at ancient petroglyphs or hieroglyphs, they weren't just drawing monsters or quote-unquote aliens. They were, all this time, they were drawing plasma discharge.
Yes.
It was so evident back then that the energy was so potent back then that they could actually see it with their own naked eye within the atmosphere.
Yes.
Which also makes it even more common sense of why they built the ancient architecture the way they did, because the access to that energy was easy to get, and they can harness it into their buildings and shower themselves with energy and use it any type of way. And diving with the amethyst crystal lenses, you're seeing through crystallized structure, and it's also fractal therapy as well, and it's also emitting infrared as well. So it's an amplifier when you're in the sunlight. It's amplifying some of the sun's healing spectrums in that regard, and it's replicating, in a sense, it's like if you were in the earth, you're visually seeing what's going on, because wearing this 24/7, you will notice at one point the crystals start to move within the lens. And it reminded me of corals. If you take a piece of a coral and you go all across the world, no matter where you are with the coral, at a specific time of the day, it'll start to ping a specific frequency. So I wonder if the crystals are doing, like, that was what I was witnessing with the lenses.
Yeah. And two, just to speak on what you were saying, like what, those petroglyphs, what they call the squatter man today. They call it the squatter man. But basically, like you said, in reference to the plasma discharge, all of our ancestors have the capacity to be able to physically see this phenomenon take place. And I speak about that. So, you know, when they seen solar flares going off, you know, and things of that nature, solar flares basically initiated within the ionosphere an electrical current. And this current was surged through the ionosphere, developing a magnetic field, and that magnetic field will pinch down on that environment, what they call the Z pinch in science. And that Z pinch then will release charge, or what they call negative ions and things of that nature, to shower us with the energy and the information. And that's the reason, like you said, why they would physically draw the geometry. So the geometry is key, because sacred geometry deals with interferometry. So when we're talking about interferometry, we're talking about the ethers being able to literally braid electromagnetism into something that you can physically see. So like you said, when they were drawing glyphs, it wasn't for, you know, to worship, like, you know, animals, like you said, monsters per se, but they were literally into physics. You know, they were into plasma discharge. Even, you know, like I spoke about, and I heard you speak about as well, you know, in Kemet, you would always see them standing on a base. You know, they will stand on an inductor, because inductors don't produce or translate electricity. So when they would be out getting sun, they would stand on either rubber, glass, wood, some sort of material that's an inductor that doesn't conduct electricity. They will receive all that electricity or light, and then immediately, once they stepped off that base, they would discharge the electricity, hold their hands up, and send it to whoever needs healing, whoever needs, you know, some sort of information, so some sort of therapy, you know, because our hands release infrared radiation, heat, you know. So just with that alone, I just wanted to add to that piece. Yeah, because that's key. You know what I'm saying? So when you're bringing the technology that you're bringing, people have to understand that you're doing things that are tangible in reference to not only spirituality, but technology that our ancestors were into. When you see them holding the ankhs, those were actual pieces that they utilized in order to translate microwave energy, basically to allow them to be able to not only facilitate some sort of anti-gravity effect, but also radiate, you know, also allow them to receive more information and more light. So, you know, what you're doing again is key, and you're demonstrating it in a tangible way that all of our ancestors were very privy to. It's literally physics. It's technology, you know. And like I speak about in the past, you know, we always talk about AI and things of that nature, which is, you know, here to help aid us in a certain way. But we have to understand too that we are the intelligence. We are the technology. So once we truly, really understand how the brain works, how the heart works, you know, how the eyes work, that way we can have a broader grasp on not only how to utilize the technology that you present, but also reference back to ancient Kemet, the Dogons, and be able to read those petroglyphs and correspond it to, and say, oh, okay, so, you know, we used our eyes to be able to see certain plasma discharge phenomena take place. Oh, okay, so when we seen that, that meant we went outside, knowing that our bodies are conductors of electricity. We receive that information and we filter that through as information. You see, so
Bingo.
you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was tapping in with, you know, just like sun gazing, right? It's also plasma gazing at the same time as well. So when you're using the plasma projector and you're gazing at it too, it's also a low-key, subtle workout for your eyes, because you're seeing the light spectrum go back and forth with the plasma as it touches your body as well, and the electrical inputs. The same plasma, and the way it touches your body is how it's touching the atoms within your body, and how your blood is communicating back and forth. The cellular bodies are communicating back and forth. So it's a way, it's strengthening what's already happening in your body, especially when you're also gazing at the plasma as well, and especially when you're outside in nature and you're doing this type of practice as well. And like I said, I don't want people to just rely on the tool, but utilize the breathing practices, like the eye breathing as well, that's going to be coming with the lenses. You know, you know, that's what it's for.
Mm, mm. And really quick, I just want to hone in as well for those who haven't heard me speak about it. But like I've said before, like even when you correspond the eyes, like when you look in the eye of, at the eye of Heru and Kemet, you'll notice that sometimes they'll uh they'll draw fractions around the eye of Heru. So one part of the eye will be designated to 1/2. Another part of the eye will be designated to 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, 1/32, 1/64. And what they were speaking about is the importance of breathing in more inhales than exhales. So when you see 1/4, it's 4 inhales, exhale. If you do 32 inhales, 1 exhale, because the goal was to overload the body on light. And what you're doing is you're creating pools of plasma or electrons in the brain, because the brain is plasma that's electrically conductive. So what you're actually doing in totality is producing what they call standing waves, but really they call them acoustic shock waves, that allow those waves then to become detectors of the 0 point, which means now your brain has a broader capacity to be able to access information from the 0 point and pull it directly into the body. So the breath work is key. Reason why when you do this exercise, you feel lightheaded, because we breathe in 7,000 tons of photons per second. So imagine now doubling that. You're overloading the body on light. So the reason why you get lightheaded is because you're overloading the body on light, and thus you're processing not only more information, but you're stimulating a sound, more specifically within the third ventricle, that's actually producing acoustic shock waves in the plasma, and those shock waves become standing waves or transducers or detectors of information that exists within the 0 point to pull it back into the body. You see, so all of this was documented on the walls. And again, like I said, if people can understand that perspective, then they get a broader glance of, we really are the technology. We really are, the AI. You know what I mean? So, it's just, everything is connected. And once we begin to see spirituality more on a scientific basis, it makes it more tangible. It makes it more relatable. It kind of removes the teacher out of the way, because now it's like, oh, okay, like I have knowledge in my heart and my brain. I know how to utilize it, and fashion it in such a way to allow the matter in it to adhere to more of the celestial canopy, so that way we can continue to receive information from the cosmos. So with you, even, and I know what you do, me personally know what you do as far as, and everybody does know, as far as your diet, how you eat. Me personally, I fast a lot, and that helps, a lot. That's a whole another conversation in of itself. But yeah, bro, like I said, I just want to get on here and commemorate again what you're doing. You're demonstrating technology that we had back then and bringing it to the present moment, and you're giving people a way how to utilize equipment to better, of course, enhance themselves, but also giving the information with it to let them know that when you use plasma discharge, when you use scalar guns, things of that nature, we got to understand too that our cells are capacitors. The cellular membrane is made up of phospholipids, an insulator and a conductor. So our body literally has the capacity to store charge. And again, once we look at it from that perspective, and then we take your plasma gun and initiate it on ourselves physically, we know exactly mentally what's going on. We can create a visual of actually what's transpiring in the body, because we're building up the voltage. The goal is to build up the voltage in the body. So just want to say that, bro.
Yeah, appreciate it, brother, as always. And a little quick tip. You mentioned 4 and 1, right? So something you can also do, because you also mentioned shock waves, right? So the impulses that you're creating. So like that's 4 pulses, and then just 1 long exhale, and that's also a 4/1 as well, in a sense.
Right.
And then you can go up to I can go all the way to 32. I can do that. We can do that, but you get the point with the numbers over 1 as well. That's another way of looking at the impulses in terms of the breath, because it's breaking the aspect of time as well, in that sense, because now you're focused on the actual electrical impulses as you're breathing it in.
Exactly. Exactly. The pulses. And really quick, off of that, just the pulse. And people have heard me say this numerous times, but for those who are interested, when you talk about a pulse specifically coming from different stars that you want to communicate with, you study a mathematics called the Dirac delta function, DIRAC delta function. And this is what the Dogons were privy to in reference to information to know how to communicate directly with the pulse of a star, because a pulse is a form of communication. It's a disturbance within the ethers, or what they call a perturbation. But we have the capacity to access this pulse by way of understanding that when you look at a star and it's flickering and you feel a certain resonance with it, there's a communication that's happening. Now, the goal is when you feel that resonance, of course, you're not going to hear anything through words, because even DNA doesn't speak through words. They speak through resonance and frequency. So when you feel a resonance, when you're outside looking at a star, that means you communicate back to it. You see? So, with that being said, again, that mathematics I was talking about is called the Dirac delta function. So people who are want to get interested in that type of mathematics, that's the mathematics they're talking about in reference to a pulse coming directly from a star. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we're also talking about the electrical brain systems of the world as well, because delta is also a brain wave, right? And you have theta and you have gamma.
Exactly, bro. Exactly. No doubt, family. Well, again, gratitude. Like I said, I
Likewise.
want to hop on here and just give you your flowers once again. But in due time, we'll set up a build, and we'll dialogue back and forth as we always do, bro.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Peace and
No
harmony.
doubt, God. Peace, bro.
All right, guys. Any questions heading to this meeting? Let's see if there's any questions here. Yes, we are the CPU, central processing units. We process emotions, right? We process breath, right? We process data. We process color. That's all data. We are computers. Yes. The brain sits in water like a SARS tomb. Ooh, that's a good one. You know what? Another cool one is the heart. It's an island. That was another cool one. The heart is also an island if you really think about it. But yeah, you know how they also say that different parts of the body is correlated with different planets, right? And at the end of the day, what pumps most of the blood that also sends feedback to the organs? The breath. The breath pumps 70%. 70% of your blood is pumped by your lungs. So as we were talking about those impulses, so you're inhaling the frequency, and as you're exhaling, you're embodying, keyword M-E-M, you're embodying the frequency in that regard. All right, guys, I got to head out. Have a breathful day. If you found value in this, share it. If you find value in anything, and also join the Breathful newsletter if you want updates on the amethyst lenses and also informational updates. I don't just blast products at you. Ask anyone here. You actually do learn through those email updates, because Instagram is somewhat limiting, or these other social medias. So tap in the Breathful newsletter, link in bio. Have a breathful day, everyone. Peace.